Hey guys, this is Ryan from Golden and Sons. Today I want to talk to you about how I almost lost and closed my business multiple occasions throughout COVID. So obviously when we started our business, we started 2 weeks before COVID. So when COVID started and shut us down for 3 months, we ran into a cash flow issue, right? Because one is we couldn't generate revenue to pay off our costs and to recuperate the expenses that we put into the renovation of the shop. But two, and more subtle, was that the environment was changing around us at this time that our shop was not built for. Our shop was built to foster a community for entrepreneurs to come and chat and to also look good. Problem was, during COVID, not only did they shut down barbershops, when they reopened, people could only come in and they couldn't even wait in the front. They had to just go in for the haircut and then leave. And everyone wore masks. It was very impersonal. The whole community aspect fell apart. And so we had to ride that wave for about 2 years. We never really found our footing because of COVID. And I wouldn't say it's because of COVID. Again, it's like I mentioned in the last video, it was because I wasn't clear enough in what I wanted to achieve. And so when I was able to stand back up, when the closures had come down, like when they had reopened the economy and I was able to stand up again and work on the business, I didn't have a clear enough view of what I was supposed to do next, which was what led to the problems of, not being able to build up the community. I didn't know what marketing to put out. I didn't know what messaging to put out. I didn't know who to reach out to. I didn't know who to collaborate with. And all this time, people would say, man, COVID was very hard for you. It wasn't COVID. COVID was the stress test, but it wasn't COVID. It was my lack of clarity. If at any point I've ever thought about closing my business, and it's happened about 3 times, it was always because it was a lack of clarity. I reached a point in my understanding of what would needed to win, and I didn't know whether I wanted to make that sacrifice. Okay, so let me clarify this, okay? So there's 3 things to consider when I first started my business and I was about to close and people say it was due to COVID or how COVID influenced it. The first thing was that I wasn't very clear about what I wanted. And so when COVID arrived and shut down our business, I didn't know how to serve the entrepreneur community in those 3 months. Listen, entrepreneurs during those 3 months had mental health issues that I could have addressed. But I never did that because I didn't know that was exactly the target I wanted to serve. So I was not very clear about what I wanted the shop to achieve. Now, when the shop reopened, I didn't know what kind of messaging to put out, what kind of social media to engage in order to get my target market to come in. Because again, I wasn't very clear on what I wanted to do. So all COVID did was stress test me into realizing that, if I was going to do well, I was going to do really well. And if I was going to do poorly, I was going to do really poorly. That's all that COVID did. It magnified my understanding of the business. So if everything was hazy, it became even more hazy. If everything was clear, it became even more clear. And that's why in COVID, you saw like a disparity in wealth. There were people that became enormously rich and people that became enormously poor because the people that were rich knew where they wanted to go and how they could use COVID to their advantage. And then, some people were lucky, but for the most part, it's people knowing what they wanted and then seeing an opportunity during COVID to take advantage of it, okay? So that's the first thing that happened to us. That's why we closed. The second reason we almost closed was we had cash flow issues. So I had saved enough cash to run our business in case there was 6 months of a loss. Problem was, I think we closed for about 9 months during COVID net. I didn't know if I had that kind of cash flow. And so when you do not have capital to run your business, you tend to start to worry. You tend to start to pull back on expenses, like marketing, for example, or hiring qualified staff, or doing due diligence on people that you want to hire. And then what ends up happening is that your quality goes down. And if your quality goes down, your customer base goes down. Also, if your marketing goes down, your awareness out to the public goes down. So now you have less leads coming in, and you have less clients returning to your shop. And so your shop goes through this spiral of death where at what point you reach the bottom, you've been borrowing money for 6 months, and you're like, I don't think it's supposed to be like this. And so you want to quit. So that's the second thing. You got to manage your cash flow. You got to be very careful about it. And you also have to have enough capital to ride out a lot of negative months. Okay, that's the second thing. And the third thing is what I call the landing of understanding. Okay, when you start a business, you're going to try and predict how much of an effort it's going to take to get to your goal. Okay, so imagine you're starting here and there's the mountaintop. So you imagine, it's going to be this kind of path up to the mountaintop, right? So you'll need this much cash on reserve in order to cover your losses. You're going to hire this marketing agency. You're going to hire these kind of staff members, you're going to do these kind of operations, and it's going to lead to success. But you're not God, so you're not going to be able to predict the future. And so what ends up happening is you start off this mountain and you reach a point where you can take a break, and that's your first landing. And I call this the landing of understanding, because at the landing of understanding, it is when you finally understand and can survey the land. And you look around and you realize, oh man, the mountaintop's not over here. The mountaintop's over there. It's going to take 3 more years. It's going to take 10 more years. It's going to take hundreds of thousands of dollars more to work. I might have to move into a new industry. This industry might die. I might not have enough bills to pay for my family's expenses. You gather an understanding of what more is needed of you to succeed in the future. So you thought you could start here and you'd end up here. And then finally, when you reach that first landing, you realize the peak is not here, it's over there. And so the sacrifice that life is asking of you to succeed is even greater than what you had expected in the beginning. And this is where everyone makes their decision of whether to continue or to climb back down and go back to regular life, or to start off in another mountain. But the problem is, every entrepreneur will always hit the landing of understanding. They'll always hit that wall. They'll always hit that valley of despair, where they will realize that the sacrifice asked of them is greater than what they expected. And now it is a chance for them to make a decision. Is what I am trying to achieve worth the sacrifices that are going to be asked of me? And if so, will I do it? And then you make your decision. Either it's a no, and it's fair. If it's a no, you just climb back down the mountain. But if it's a yes, you begin the climb, and it's a slow slog. And what ends up happening is you reach another landing of understanding, and you realize the peak is even further, and the sacrifice needed is even greater. Every time I've ever considered wanting to close the business, it had to do with the fact that I reached a landing of understanding, and I understood that what was required of me to succeed, maybe even more than I was willing to give up. But when I made the decision that what I wanted to achieve far exceeded the sacrifices needed to get there, at every turn, at every moment, no matter what kind of sacrifice was asked for, that was when I was able to go all in for the business. So that's what COVID taught me about business. That's how my business almost closed multiple times. It had to do with those 3 things: lack of vision, lack of capital, and lack of resolve when I finally realized it was going to take longer than I thought it would. Anyway, I hope you find this video helpful. I will see you in the next one. Take care. This is Ryan from Goldman & Sons.